The Substance is a 2024 body horror comedy film co-produced, written and directed by Coralie Fargeat. The film stars Demi, Margaret Qualley and Dennis Quaid. An international co-production between the United Kingdom, the United States and France, its plot follows a fading celebrity, who decides to use a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself, Qualley, unknowingly giving herself horrifying side effects. The Substance premiered on the 19th of May 2024 at the 77th Cannes Film Festival and was selected to compete for the Palme d'Or in its main competition section, where Fargeat won Best Screenplay. The film was released theatrically in the United Kingdom and the United States by Mubi on the 20th September 2024, and is scheduled to be released in France by Metropolitan Filmexport on the 6th of November 2024. Plot: Elizabeth Sparkle, an Academy Award-winning actress and host of an aerobics TV show, 6-7, is fired on her 50th birthday, allegedly for being too old, and is subsequently involved in a car accident after seeing one of her billboards being taken down. From a nurse at the hospital, she receives a flash drive labeled The Substance, which promotes a serum that, when injected, creates a younger, more beautiful, more perfect version of the user, though the two are still connected as one. After some deliberation, Elizabeth orders and injects the product, a single-use activator, causing a younger version of herself to be born from a slit in her back. The younger form, adopting the name Sue, must inject herself with a stabilizer serum extracted from the spine of unconscious Elizabeth each day. The two are required to switch bodies every 7 days without exception, with one resting unconsciously and the other living out in the world. Sue is hired back onto Elizabeth's old show and quickly ascends to new heights of fame and admiration. When Elizabeth is forced to switch bodies with her, however, she continues to struggle with a deepening sense of inadequacy, loneliness, and low self-esteem. The contrast between Elizabeth and Sue grows increasingly stark. Elizabeth begins indulging in overeating and alcohol, while Sue indulges in casual sex and addictively extracts more stabilizer to avoid having to switch bodies, causing Elizabeth to age rapidly. Elizabeth contacts the supplier, who tells her that she can either keep obeying the switches or terminate the substance, neither of which will restore her past appearance. Elizabeth relents and continues to abuse the substance as Sue. As weeks pass, Elizabeth is reduced to a haggard, elderly woman due to Sue's addiction. When Sue is invited to host a highly anticipated live New Year's Eve special, she extracts enough stabilizer to be used for 3 months. However, on the eve of the special, while engaging in casual sex with an unknown man, Sue runs out of stabilizer and is forced by the supplier to switch back to Elizabeth. To her horror, she is now a hairless and deformed hunchback. Desperate, Elizabeth disguises herself in heavy clothing and obtains a new serum to terminate Sue's existence. However, still yearning to feel admired by fans, she stops at the last second and revives Sue, rendering both of them conscious and severing their connection. Upon seeing the near-empty termination serum, Sue kills Elizabeth before leaving to host the New Year's Eve show. Unable to stabilize herself due to Elizabeth's death, Sue's body begins to rapidly deteriorate. In a bid to save herself, Sue tries to create a new version of herself with leftover activator. Instead, she inadvertently creates Monstro Elisasu, a grotesque hybrid of the two. Elisasu goes to the live broadcast and shocks the audience. The horrified spectators erupt into violent chaos, culminating in the hybrid's head getting decapitated, grotesquely regenerating and bursting with blood. As the audience becomes drenched in Elisasu's blood, the hybrid manages to escape outside before collapsing into a pile of entrails. The face of the original Elizabeth emerges from the remains as a blob, crawling toward her neglected star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Elizabeth finds solace by positioning herself on the star and gazing at the Milky Way, eventually merging with the star as she melts. The next day, her bloody remains are cleaned up by a floor scrubber. Cast: Demi as Elizabeth Sparkle, Margaret Qualley as Sue, Dennis Quaid as Harvey Gore, Abrams as Oliver Hugo, Diego Garcia as Diego Philip Schurer as Mr. Scream, Joseph Balderrama as Craig Silver. Production. In January 2022, it was announced that Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley would star in the film, with Working Title Films producing and Universal Pictures distributing. Coralie Fargeat would serve as director, but also as producer alongside Working Title co-chairs Eric Fellner and Tim Bevan. 8, 9, 10. It was co-produced by Blacksmith, a Paris-based studio created by Fargeat that same year. In February 2022, it was announced that Ray Liotta had joined the cast. Liotta died in May 2022, which led Fargeat to later recast the role with Dennis Quaid. Filming was projected to begin in Paris in May 2022. In August 2022, Deadline Hollywood reported that the film was currently in production. 16. Later that same month, Qualley confirmed in an interview with W that she was working on the film. 17. Filming officially wrapped in October 2022. Reception box office. As of September 29, 2024, The Substance has grossed $6.9 million in the United States and Canada and $3.2 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $10.1 million. In the United States and Canada, The Substance was released alongside Transformers 1 and Never Let Go and was projected to gross around $3 million from 1,949 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $1.3 million on its first day, including $512,000 from Wednesday and Thursday night previews. 3. It went on to debut to $3.2 million, finishing 6th at the box office. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 90% of 271 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 8.2/10. The website's consensus reads, audaciously gross, wickedly clever, and possibly Demi Moore's finest hour. The Substance is a gasp-inducing feat from writer-director Coralie Fargeat. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 77 out of 100, based on 55 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale, while those surveyed by PostTrack gave it an 80% overall positive score, including an average of 4 out of 5 stars, with 75% saying they would definitely recommend it. Peter Bradshaw's 4-star review in The Guardian called it a cheerfully silly and outrageously indulgent piece of gonzo body horror comedy. David Ehrlich of IndieWire graded the film an A, calling it an epic, audacious body horror masterpiece, an instant classic. The most sickly entertaining theatrical experience of the year. 36. Nicholas Barber of the BBC awarded the film 4 stars out of 5, while singling out Moore's performance. Ripping into her best big screen role in decades, Demi Moore is fearless in parodying her public image. Phil DeSemblian's 5-star review in Time Out says it is Moore who glues it all together, going full Isabella Johnny in Possession in a vanity-free performance full of bruised ego, dawning horror and vulnerability. Owen Gleiberman in Variety praised the film's director. Coralie Fargeat works with the flair of a grindhouse Kubrick in a weirdly fun, cathartically grotesque fusion of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Showgirls. Radhika Seth in Vogue called it an audacious piece of filmmaking, the most exciting release to have debuted on the Croisette so far, and that it was her current pick to win the Palme d'Or. Damon Wise in Deadline said it is a riotous, dreamlike horror thriller that ends in a delirious symphony of blood, guts, and otherwise undefinable viscera. Themes Wendy Ide of The Guardian praised The Substance for the film's feminist perspective of older women, making note of how other female-led horror films like Carrie or Rosemary's Baby center on themes of menstruation and childbirth. She wrote that The Substance, in contrast, not only offers a female perspective on women's bodies, but also argues that things only start to get properly messy once fertility is a dim memory. New York Times critic Alyssa Wilkinson made note of the film's satirically exaggerated camera angles and shots, depicting the female characters in a way that feels reminiscent mostly of porn. She wrote, "In the end, that's what The Substance does best. Not just remind us about the absurd standards for female beauty and the destructive power of celebrity, but turn the mirror back on us. The sharpest critique isn't about bodies, but about the way we've trained ourselves to look at those bodies and the effect that has on our own. The movie is, appropriately enough, a mirror, and our discomfort reveals our own hidden biases and fears about ourselves. Being older, being famous, being seen, being loved, being usurped by someone younger and hotter, it's all here. Nothing like a mirror to remind you what lurks beneath. Feeling crushed by impossible beauty standards and society's hyperfixation on youth is nothing new. But Coralie Fargeat's The Substance arrives in the wake of the Ozempic era, when a quick shot promises weight loss that seemed impossible to achieve without going under the knife just a few years ago. In my social media feed, the ads offer the chance to feel like your old self again, and to give it a try for cheap and see fast results. Tempting, isn't it? The parallels between GLP-1 weight loss drugs to the movie's aforementioned Substance end there. But Fargeat, who wrote and directed the film, twists the search for a fountain of youth shot into a blood and neon-drenched spectacle. As an actress, Elizabeth Sparkle, Demi Moore, once dazzled audiences, but, like her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, she has seen better days. She loses her job leading a fitness class for a daytime TV show when a grotesque executive named Harvey, Dennis Quaid, cancels her program to make room for anyone young. Heartbroken over being unceremoniously dumped for her age, Elizabeth learns of a mysterious product called The Substance, which creates a younger version of herself that will allow her to continue working in the youth-obsessed entertainment business. However, like the monsters in Gremlins, The Substance comes with a very specific set of rules. She's only to activate her younger self once, and she and her perky alter ego are to switch off every 7 days without exception. They are allegedly supposed to share the same consciousness, but as Elizabeth and her younger self, Sue, Margaret Qualley, continue with The Substance, they learn about the unspoken side effects of pursuing youth at any cost. Fargeat shows sympathy for both Elizabeth and Sue's plights as one might for Frankenstein and the monster he creates. What begins as an experiment towards a new beginning quickly warps with unintended consequences. In The Substance, Fargeat also references David Cronenberg's fondness for body horror in movies like The Brood, where a mad scientist experiments on a pregnant woman with dire results. Stuart Gordon's Reanimator, which also features a neon green goo that resembles The Substance. James Whale's The Invisible Man, which follows a medical marvel gone awry, and Brian De Palma's Carrie, in the way it uses copious amounts of blood and destruction to illustrate a girl's pain. Perhaps the use of Bernard Herrmann's Vertigo theme feels too on the nose, but it fits thematically in the story and its obsessive mood. As with her lean and mean feature debut Revenge, Fargeat writes a tight script focused on very few characters. She matches her talented on-screen collaborators with an equally formidable team behind the camera, including cinematographer Benjamin Kraken, who builds on the lurid pink and blue color scheme of Revenge, morphing it into a bold and bright color palette fit for Beverly Hills. Costumes by Emanuel Yushnovsky, who incorporates even more eye-catching colors and materials to shape each character's personalities. And composer Rafferty, whose catchy and propulsive beats make the movie feel like it's speeding past traffic on the 405. The Substance may use horror trappings to critique the entertainment business and the multi-billion-dollar industry cashing in on people's search for the fountain of youth. But it does so with such panache that it's still having its share of fun. With the caricature of Harvey, who is so cartoonishly loud and awful in every scene, Fargeat and Kraken often switch to a fisheye lens or uncomfortable close-ups to make him appear even more grotesque and hypocritical for cutting Elizabeth's show. Production designer Stanislas Ray-Delelet and his team's stylized layouts also play into the movie's heightened reality, which can be seen at the TV studio where an overlong hallway is soaked in the orange colors of the shining carpet, and at the pharmaceutical depot Elizabeth visits that looks right out of 2001, A Space Odyssey. As Sue, Qualley is reimagined into the sexpot next door with an idealized hot body who has a fondness for neon workout clothes, lip gloss, big earrings, and boys. Unlike Elizabeth's fitness show, Sue's workout videos zoom in on her body parts because those are the pieces of her executives, like Harvey, are fetishizing and selling to the audience, reinforcing the worship of youth and its gravity-defying skin. As far as mustache-twirling villains go, Quaid may not have the facial hair, but he has a maniacal laugh and heartless persona to match Harvey's ostentatious suits. He looks to be having a field day, behaving badly as the personification of the cruelty women experience in the industry. It's easily Quaid's best acting in recent memory, and it's not even the best one in the movie. The Substance works as well as it does because of Moore's unbridled performance as a woman struggling with self-hatred, society's treatment of her, and a newfound dependency on a miracle drug. In one particularly heartbreaking scene, Elizabeth stands in front of a mirror, fussing over the final details of her makeup and outfit. Although she looks glamorous as anyone could hope to look, her face betrays a dissatisfied stare as she sees more flaws than beauty before her. It's a ritual many of us might know too well as we stress over accessories and lip color in the hopes of looking fashionable, carefully adding or subtracting layers of clothes and jewelry to feel good in our own skin. Elizabeth is so displeased with her image, she aggressively wipes the deep shade of lipstick across her face and pulls off the fake lashes from her lids. She can't see her own beauty, and that will upend her life. While it may feel like a cautionary tale for our times, the horrors at the heart of The Substance have been with us for many years. And the issues the movie uncovers are so much more than skin deep. This movie is fucking demented. I mean that in the most enthused, celebratory sense possible. Coralie Fargeat, whose 2017 thriller Revenge was one of its year's finest features, has finally returned with The Substance. It is a jaw-dropping second film, high in ambition and overflowing with punch-in-the-gut satire. I have one major caveat, that it is about 15 minutes longer than it needs to be, but otherwise for me this is about as good as cinema gets. Demi plays Elizabeth Sparkle, formerly a very famous Hollywood star, now reduced to hosting Jane Fonda-esque exercise programs for television. When she is fired from her position in favor of a younger replacement, Sparkle receives an anonymous offer to sample The Substance, an experimental drug regime that promises to restore her youth in an unprecedented fashion. The best kind of satire is that which can straddle both comedic and serious moments in the same text. Fargeat's film does exactly that. It portrays female self-destruction at the bidding of patriarchal pressures, and it does so in ways that are dramatic, darkly funny, and regularly quite difficult to watch. It does not take long for Sparkle's experience on The Substance to emerge as fully-fledged body horror, replete with a surfeit of gore, confronting violence and self-abuse, and flinch-generating medical procedures. I consider myself reasonably comfortable watching extreme cinema, but there are specific moments in The Substance where I simply had to look away from the screen. It is wonderfully provocative stuff. These sequences, not to mention the deliberately excessive male gaze of the film, reflect its origins in what critic James Quant called the new French extremity. It was a millennial movement within French cinema, led by enfant terrible Gaspard Noé, with a furiously transgressive interest in sex and violence, and particularly the intersection of the two. Fargeat's first film Revenge was a late-stage entry in that movement, and if it is to continue, I think it is second-generation filmmakers like Fargeat and Julia Ducournau, raw Titane, who are going to drive its evolution. Notably, both women have used the movement's overall conceit to interrogate its predominantly patriarchal origins. They have absolutely left this subgenre in a better place than when they joined it. There is precious little restraint to The Substance. Fargeat, with cinematographer Benjamin Kraken, sexualizes parts of the film in a manner so deliberately excessive, it reminds one of Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls. In scenes of medical horror, she is relentless in depicting up-close infections, tissues, and fluids. The sound design is truly horrifying. I did not realize watching a wound sewn up would be so much more disturbing when I could hear the thread moving through punctured flesh. Elsewhere, Kraken's clinical shot composition seems inspired by Stanley Kubrick. Everything is grotesque: the sex, the violence, the gore, and the performances. Demi has been appropriately lauded for her performance here. It is likely a career best, since it seems so perfectly tailored to her talents. Dennis Quaid is similarly strong, playing the sexist, vulgar television executive Harvey. As the seductive starlet Sue, Margaret Qualley fulfills the great promise she has been expressing in earlier roles. All three lead performances require extremity and indeed bravery, and it is their fearless portrayals that help to make Fargeat's satire as finely sharpened as it is. If only more films were this vivid, shameless, and bold. The Substance excels as comedy, as a thriller, as body horror, and as social commentary. Most importantly, it excels as cinema. It is deeply cine-literate, reflecting not just Verhoeven and Kubrick, but also Cronenberg, Zhuowski, De Palma, Aronofsky, and many others. It is all held together with a measured hand and a developing talent that easily surpasses Fargeat's earlier film. You may love The Substance. You may hate it. You may very well be actively repulsed by it. You are absolutely not going to forget it. The Substance is screening at the 2024 Melbourne International Film Festival. The Substance is the most insane midnight movie you'll see in a multiplex in 2024. Needless to say, I loved it. The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargeat, screening at Kendall Square Cinema, Coolidge Corner Theatre, AMC Assembly Row 12, and other movie houses in New England. Approved for medical use in 2017, the medication semaglutide, brand name Ozempic, was developed to improve glycemic control and assist with weight management for type 2 diabetes. Its active ingredient is GLP-1, a hormone found in the small intestine that stimulates insulin secretion and simulates feeling full. Of course, diabetes treatment isn't why Ozempic has become the drug of choice for the rich, famous, and suddenly very slender. Celebrities like Oprah, Kelly Clarkson, and Rebel Wilson have publicly credited Ozempic injections with their drastic weight loss. Little has been said of its side effects, likely because the weight loss is the side effect for its intended use. I'm not getting any younger. My 40s are now closer in sight than my adolescence. If I'm mistaken for younger, it's because of the rigorous upkeep most women are intimately familiar with. I bleach and dye my hair to cover the grays. I have a skincare regimen, slathering myself in retinol, collagen, and snail mucus. I go to the gym at least twice a week in an effort to stay fit and toned. They say women hit the wall at 30, and as I inch closer to 40, the pressure is mounting to stave off wrinkles, varicose veins, and white hairs for as long as possible. All of this, I'm well aware, will ultimately be for naught. It's from that perspective that I watched The Substance, the buzzy second feature from Coralie Fargeat and winner for this year's Best Screenplay Prize at Cannes. Her debut, 2017's Revenge, stands as one of the great rape revenge movies of the last decade, placing the predatory male gaze and the rape culture it manifests in the literal crosshairs. I felt Revenge never got its fair due in the post-Me Too landscape, grossly overshadowed by its feckless, evil, double-promising young woman several years later. It seems Fargeat finally has a real breakthrough on her hands. The Substance is the most insane midnight movie you'll see in a multiplex in 2024. Needless to say, I loved it.